Today we learn how to give a convincing presentation, a presentation without a PowerPoint presentation. How can we convey our idea in such a fashion that it has a desired impact on the listener? Now we'll talk about or learn about two strategies which we can use to make this kind of convincing communication which will have. Before I start, let me tell you a story of two great speakers from Greece. Now, there was a one occasion when somebody who was a great speaker, who was very well known great speaker of Greece, was supposed to deliver a speech in the Greek parliament. And at the same time, there was another gentleman who was not so well known, but he was also supposed to give or deliver a speech after this gentleman has given a speech. When the first person who was a great speaker, very respected person, who had a mastery over language, who could, uh, as it is, was a great orator, started speaking, everybody was in awe. After his speech was finished, everybody thought that they have never heard such a great speech in their life. They were all in awe of his speech, which was just delivered, and the whole audience got up and gave him a standing ovation. They kept on clapping for almost 5 7 minutes, and everybody said that it was a great speech. Then he sat down. The second person got up and started to give a speech. Now, this fellow was not as erudite, as learned, and as uh, you know, having the same kind of mastery over language, or was not a great orator. I mean, he was not known to be a great orator. He started speaking, but everybody felt that he was speaking from his heart. The whole speech was as if they were all going through the experience which this man was narrating. They were also having the same kind of emotion, which the emotion this man was conveying through his speech. It was kind of a heart to heart personalized talk, although he was making mistakes in his pronunciation and in structure of sentences and all that. But nobody was minding, and they were all feeling that this is something which is very, very authentic, something which is directly going to their heart. The moment his speech ended, there was no praise, there was no standing ovation, nobody got up. There was actually a pin of silence. But after 5 minutes, when the whole thing, the entire communication was settled in the mind of the audience, the entire crowd got up and marched against the most powerful man on earth and killed Caesar. Which speech do you think was more powerful, the first or the second? The first speech got ovation, praises, claps, but the second speech got action. We learn how to give.
So the second one.
Yeah, second one. So today we learn how to give a second kind of speech. Now the second kind of speech has to be authentic. Now, how do I make my speech authentic? The only way to make my speech authentic and emotionally charged, which will connect the speaker to the audience, happens when somebody narrates some experience from their own life to the audience. Because when I am conveying some experience from my own life to the audience, it sounds authentic because they feel they are hearing from the a person who has experienced this. That means it is a first person encounter. That means the person who's experiencing, he's saying the, he's sharing his experience. It is not something he has heard or read. It is something which he has undergone himself. And when we narrate our experiences and draw some conclusion from our experiences, it is something which is, we are learning from life. It is something which is not bookish. It is something which is connected to reality, and therefore it has more impact on the listeners than the something which we narrate from facts and figures and statistics and so on and so forth. Therefore, a speech which includes the personal experience of the speaker, it is a life experience which he is sharing with the audience, and there is a learning from that experience which he is conveying to the listeners is much more powerful than lifeless statistics and facts and figures or logic. Therefore, a speech which is structured like this will have a great impact on the audience. It will make the audience take action. Now, I'll give you a sample speech. I'll tell you, I'll give you two sample speeches to make you understand what is how the speech is structured. And normally, when we are running a class in the, in the classroom, every participant has to come and give a speech like that practice. Since it is not possible right now on you know this Zoom platform, what we can do is I can ask you to record your speech like this and send it to us. We can actually see some of the random speeches and give you some feedback. Yeah, you can actually, we can also create a, if you can, we can select some great speeches from whatever speeches you have recorded and send it to us as a right kind of role model speeches, so that the rest of the participants can also hear those speeches and can understand how this speech has to be delivered, because those are the speeches which are created by the students. Now, let me give you a sample speech, just to give you actually two sample speeches, and you will understand what I'm trying to say. So, the first speech goes like this. Many years back, I had a factory in Falta Export Processing Zone, and the factory used to start functioning right at 5 o'clock in the morning. And normally, I used to go early in the morning and look after the factory. By 7, 8 o'clock, I used to start driving from Falta back to Calcutta to be on time in my office of PS Group in Chakraberia. And the driving time was normally 2 hours, so I used to leave by 8 o'clock to be able to reach my office by 10 o'clock. Now, one day, it took me longer than required, and I could only leave my factory by 9 o'clock. And I had an appointment at my office at 10:30 with some banker, which was very important, and I didn't want to be late for that appointment. So I was driving the car, and I was driving very fast to be able to reach on time. I just wanted to finish this 2-hour journey in 1.5 hours, so I was driving very, very fast. I was actually overtaking all the cars in front of me, and I was driving a Santro. I could see that there was a car in front of me, which is a sumo car, which was a bigger car, and that was also in a hurry, and that was also overtaking all the cars in front of them. And I was actually following that Santro, and I was also overtaking all the cars along with the Santro. And it happened for quite 15-20 minutes. After 15-20 minutes, I saw that the Santro was overtaking a bus. Now, Santro was such a big car that it was blocking my view to see what is in front of the Santro. I was also following the Santro, and I saw that the Santro just overtook the bus on the left, and I was just behind the Santro. And to my horror, I saw that the moment Santro went ahead of the bus on my right, on my left, sorry, I saw a bus coming from the front. There was no way that I could now overtake the bus on my left, and I could not go on the right because there was a ditch. I realized that my end has come because the bus coming from the front was almost coming at the speed of 100 and I was driving at the speed of 100, and I could imagine within split second that this impact will be two cars head on collision at the rate of 100 kilometers per hour, each car hitting each other. The moment we hit each other, I could feel that, the entire, all the glasses of my car were shattering. My whole head was full of shattered glass. I lost my consciousness. I became, everything blacked out. And I thought it was an end. But after a few minutes, maybe, or I don't know, I lost the count of the time. I felt I was getting back to consciousness and I felt like I being pulled out of the car from the window. The moment I came out, my whole body was full of glass. I just could remove all my glass and I just first checked. I was, if I have broken any of my ribs or any bones, I was okay. It was, I had few scratches and some blood was coming from my body, some because of scratches. Otherwise, I was okay. My second immediate reaction was what happened to my son who was sitting next to me. And I just saw on the other side of the car, he was also standing. And I asked him whether he was okay, and he said he was okay. Then I thought, what happened to the people sitting at the back? And then I saw them sitting under a tree and they were profusely bleeding. They were quite injury. They had, I think, much more injury than we had. But anyway, nothing was very fatal. They was okay. And there were some people who were doing some first aid. And then I saw the car. The car was in such a bad shape that nobody could imagine that anybody who was sitting in that car would have survived. Everybody must have thought that everybody sitting in the car must have been dead because the car was smashed from front, from the back. Because it also happened that once I hit the car coming from the front, there was a bus coming from the back which also came and hit us from the back also. And the car took a toss. The car went for total loss. It was beyond repair. But the fact that today I'm alive and I'm in front of you, giving this, sharing this experience, is that the reason why our lives was saved that day, mine and my son's, is because we were wearing seat belt. We just put the seat belt 5 minutes before the accident. Several studies had been done on car accidents, and it has been proved that even when you are driving in the city at the speed as low as 30 kilometers an hour, and if you meet an accident, your chances of survival goes up by 10 times if you are wearing seat belts, and it is very very low if you are not wearing the seat belt. So my friends, please ensure that when your loved ones, your friends, your family members are driving, you insist that they should wear seat belts, not because to show it to police or to save, police fining you, but for your own safety. Because a seat belt and having no seat belt will decide whether you live or not live, or whether you live with entire your your body not getting major injuries, or you're going through a major injuries and leading to disability, will depend upon whether you are wearing seat belt or not seat belt. In India, if you are aware, I don't know how many of you are aware, every year more than 2.5 lakh people lose their life because of car accidents, and more than 5 times that figure, that means 10 to 11 lakh people become disabled, where some people have life miserable than uh, you know death because of road accidents. And most of these death or these disability can be avoided just by wearing seatbelts. So ensure that everybody around you wears seatbelts. Now, if
So
I
after
told,
the
yeah, sorry,
accident, huh? After the accident, was everyone okay?
yeah, everyone survived.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, two of us in the front, and to last, the people sitting at the back, had major injuries because they were not wearing seatbelt. Although I had a seatbelt even at the back seats, but they were not unfortunately
So,
wearing seatbelt.
all right,
So
all
they
right.
had major injuries because they were actually thrown in the front seats and they actually went outside the windscreen outside. But then they didn't. They actually fell on the bonnet of the car. But we were all safe. I was wearing seatbelt. My son was wearing seatbelt, so we were not thrown out. So we were saved. And these people who took us out from the car has to actually cut the seat belts with knife to bring us out.
Oh my God.
So what I'm saying is that suppose the same talk I would have given you only by giving you statistics that oh every year so many people die and all that. I don't think that you would have the same impact then when I narrated my personal experience having gone through this accident and saving my life because I was wearing seatbelt. Same thing happened when you are making a point. If you can back your point with some live example, with some of your own experiences, and times if you can't have your own experiences, somebody else's experiences, because a case study or a live example is much more powerful only statistics, facts and figures and reasons. So any talk which we give, let us try to give a case study, an example, uh, experience to back what we are going to say at the end of their presentation as a takeaway for the participants. So this is one style, one strategy of conveying your message. It's very powerful way of conveying your message. I can go on. I can let me tell you another story. Uh, then you will understand that we can make actually uh, you know all the talks which are sprinkled with some stories in between, and when you substantiate your message with case studies or stories, it is very it goes to the audience in a very powerful manner. I had a friend who was he was kind of a genius. He was with me in St. Xavier's. And after Xavier's, he, without any preparation, without going to any tutorials, he sat for the selection test for IIM, and he got selected for IIM Calcutta. But he was from a business family, and father said, "What we do in IIM, start looking for our business in Calcutta." So he didn't go to IIM, but he got bored with his business, and he said, "Father, that I am not interested in business. I want to go to IIM." So his father said, "Okay, again you sit." He again sat, again got selected, and this time he went to IIM. After that, he went to US as a professor in the University of Pennsylvania. There, actually, first he completed his PhD and then he became the professor. Now, when I went first time to US, I stayed with him and I had a good, friend, and we kept contact. 3 years back, I had taken some students of iLead to US. We visited some universities. At that time, he invited me because Boston we went, and he was living in Boston that time. We went to Harvard and we went to the MIT, and we went. He actually cooked food for us and all that. I was really saddened by the fact that I knew that he was diagnosed with a throat cancer, and that time he was actually going through a chemotherapy treatment, but he was unable to eat and unable to speak. So when I went, we were speaking with sign language, or he was writing on the paper and I was conveying, and so on and so forth. And he was in a bad shape. He has already lost some 40% of his weight. He was actually looking 20 years elder than, older than what he was, his true age. And he has to give up his job because he couldn't speak. So, professor who can't speak, what good he is? And he was having a very miserable life because he just was able to take only liquid diet. Yeah, because he was not able to eat anything solid. Now, seeing his misery, the kind of person he was, very jovial, very happy-go-lucky, and now he's living such a miserable life. In fact, few months back, we lost him. He is dead now. And the reason why he contracted this throat cancer was his habit of eating pan parak. He's the fact that he went from India to US, he had this habit of eating pan parag in India and he continued with this habit. And because of this habit of pan parag, he got this throat cancer. And after that, he lived for almost 5, 6 years. But his life of that 5, 6 years was worse than being dead because it was very painful. He couldn't speak, he couldn't eat, he couldn't do so many things which he loved doing. He was used to sing songs and all that. Nothing was happening. So my message is that this habit of pan parag is actually causing, it is proved beyond doubt that is causing cancer in billions of people in India and abroad. What is the point of eating this when we fully know that this can cause cancer? So my message is that even if somebody in your family is eating pan parag or any other pan masala, please ask them to stop this habit because their life can become worse than death if they contract cancer, which can happen. There's a good chance of this happening by eating pan parag. So you must ask them to stop it. Now these are the two talks which I gave you, which are structured like this, that you convey an experience, draw a conclusion from that experience, and then give a call for action. That means you are asking your listener to take action based on this story and its conclusion. This is one structure which we can all use even when we are conversing with some friend or somebody one to one, or when we are giving a speech in front of hundreds or thousands of people. This strategy, this structure will always work for making our communication very, very powerful and effective. So this is one method of communication. The second method of communication we'll talk today is based on the fact that all of us have two sides of the brain. One side of the brain is responsible for all memories, positive thoughts, positive emotions, and the second part of the brain is responsible for negative memories, negative emotions, and negative thoughts. When one side of the brain is active, the other side of the brain automatically becomes subdued. You cannot be happy and sad at the same time. You cannot be angry and generous at the same time. You cannot be positive and negative at the same time. It is not possible. One is dominant, other is automatically subdued. When you are happy, positive, you are very likely to say yes to any request which comes to you. When you are unhappy, scared, fearful, angry, you are likely to say no. This is the way human beings function. Now, therefore, when you are giving a speech, somehow you have to ensure that the positive side of the brain of the listener is activated by your action. If the positive side of the brain of your listeners is activated, the chances are they'll be more receptive to what you're saying. They are more than willing to say yes to whatever you're saying. They'll be more willing to get convinced about what you're going to say. Now, how do I ensure that the positive side of the brain is activated or is active right now? The trick is I must start my speech by asking question. When I'm asking question, I'm doing two things. One is I'm making my audience feel important because I'm making it sound as if I'm not giving a speech. I'm seeking their opinion about the subject. It is a smarter way of making your audience see to what you're going to say by making them feel that it is what you're conveying is their idea. It's not your idea which is being forcibly imposed on them. It is you are giving them liberty to think independently, think on their own, and then decide to agree with your idea. This is a better way of making them agree to what you're going to say. So start your speech with questions instead of statements. Don't say that I believe, and I want expressions like I believe, I would like to say, I think. No, nobody's interested in what you are thinking. We should ask question, don't you think? Don't you believe? Don't you agree? When I start my sentences by such expressions, it sounds as if I'm not imposing any ideas, I'm asking their opinion. They are very pleased. This making them feel important will automatically activate their brain, which is responsible for happiness, positivity, so on and so forth. Second is that I must start with a sentence for which I know that my listener or audience is going to give me an answer called yes. There cannot be a no to that answer to that question. If I ask any question where the answer cannot be no, but has to be yes, the moment they say yes, their positive side of the brain is further activated, because this answer comes from the positive side of the brain, because negative side of the brain is only telling you no, they cannot say yes. Once I've activated the positive side of the brain of the listener by asking 3, 4, 5 questions connected to each other logically, where the answer has to be yes, cannot be no, by the time I come to the point, come to the message I want to convince them to agree, their their positive side of the brain is already very, very activated. It's up on the it's absolutely active, and this negative side of the brain is already very deactivated. And then I must ask my final question, and 99.9% chances are I will get a yes as an answer for my final question. Now, when you want to convince somebody, you must ensure two things. First, don't let them know what you are trying to do. Because if you let them know what you are trying to do, if I tell you that I'm going to convince you about something, you will raise so much of defense mentally to make sure that you don't get convinced. Yeah, because when I say I'm going to convince you, it sounds like a challenge, and nobody wants to lose in a challenge. And therefore, they will make sure that all your effort will go in vain. They will not accept. Catch them unaware. When you want something, some answer to some request from your mother, don't tell her that I'm going to ask you for this. Yeah, just catch her unaware. Catch your boss unaware. Catch your customer unaware. Yeah, then only you are able to get your yes when you use this technique. And then ask series of questions, first 5, 6 questions where your answer is yes, and come to the final question, which again are logically connected to these 5 questions. You can't just ask questions which are not about this subject. You have to ask question about the subject for which you are convincing your audience, but you know the answer to these questions are yes. Now, I give you a demo. I'll make presentation of 2 different ideas diametrically opposite, and I can tell you, you will say yes for both. It is like I am asking you, is it night now? You will say yes. After having said before, when I ask you, it is day now, and you will say yes. How is it possible? You see the demo. Now, this demo will give you an idea how to structure your talk in such a fashion that even the person who's absolutely opposite to what you are going to convince them, they'll say, land up saying yes to you when you present your idea in this fashion. I just give you first. So I think, I'm sure many of the participants right now, we have now 98 participants. Many of the participants right now are convinced or agree, not all will agree, but most of them will agree that love marriage is better than arranged marriage, right? Some people will agree love marriage is good than arranged marriage. And I'm 100% sure at least there are few people who will say no, arranged marriage is better than love marriage. Some people of that opinion is also there. Now, first I will convince you or try to give a talk which will convince you that love marriage is better than arranged marriage, and then subsequently I'll give you a, a same kind of argument which will say arranged marriage is better than love marriage. Yeah. Now, I am violating my law. I am actually telling you what I am going to do. So that makes my task even tougher. Yeah, if I had not told you what I'm going to do and I would have caught you unaware, you were more likely to agree what I'm saying than you will be now, because you now will have a mental resolve that let Pradeep sir try. I'll not get convinced. Yeah, let him try his best. I'll not get convinced. If with this mindset you are coming to me and yet I am able to convince you, just imagine if you are not coming with this negative mindset, I can easily convince you. Yeah. Let me give you the demo. So it goes like this. Don't you think, friends, that our parents are more experienced than us? Of course, our parents are more experienced than us. And don't you agree, friends, that the topmost priority in the mind of our parents is our well-being? They are more concerned about our betterment, our well-being, our future than their own future. And don't you think, friends, they are the best people who wish us well all the time and who has all the experience, much more experience than us, to advise us what is best for us. And don't you think, friends, when we are taking the most important decision of our life, whom should we spend the rest of our life? Whom should we get married to? They are the best people to consult because they can give us advice nobody else will give us. So don't you think, friends, when we are deciding with whom we are going to get married, we should at least consider and agree to the opinion given by our parents? And don't you think, friends, that the best thing for us to do is to get married to the person who is chosen by our parents? After this set of argument, don't you think that there is some substance, some support to arranged marriage? Now I'm just converting this. I'm just changing this. I'm now giving you a set of arguments which is in favor of love marriage. Don't you think, friends, we all have the rights to be happy? And don't you agree, friends, that only we and only we can decide and feel with whom we can be happy? Nobody else can decide and feel like us, and therefore nobody else can make the right choice for us with whom we will be happy for the rest of our life. So don't you agree, friends? Only we and only we should decide with whom should we get married to, because only we can feel who matches, with whom our chemistry will match, with whom we will be happy. Nobody else, including our parents, can make out or take that decision. And therefore, don't you think, friends, it is we who should decide who should we get married to, and therefore we should get married to the person of our choice and not the choice of our parents. Now, I have given you two set of arguments, and the chances are you will agree to both, which are diametrically opposite. Now, if you convey your message like this, the chances are the person in front of you will agree with what you're saying. Start with sentences which are questions, get your 3-4 yes, and then link your last question with these 3-4 questions which you have asked earlier, and the likelihood you will get yes for what you're asking at the end of your presentation. Try this. Don't make statements, ask questions. You are safe, because when you make statements, people can find opposite thoughts to your statement. When you're asking questions, they cannot oppose what you're asking. They have to actually say yes or no, or give their side of. They feel that they are being asked. Their opinion is being asked. The speaker is not trying to impose his thought. It is their thought which he is asking for, and he is giving them importance by asking them questions instead of making a statement. Next time, don't make statements. Please avoid making statements, and please avoid making these kind of expressions. I think, in my opinion, I believe. Nobody is interested in what I believe or I think or in my opinion. Make the whole communication and conversation sound like as if you are asking the audience. You are not giving a speech. You are actually asking them to speak. But the idea is that you are planting ideas in their head. You are making them convinced about what you want them to get convinced about. But the whole conversation sound as if you are asking their opinion. You are asking them to speak. You are not speaking. This is a smarter way of getting your what you want. So today we learned two strategies. One strategy is use your experiences, use stories to convince your audience. Write stories, write conclusions, the uh, and call for action. And second is start your speech with questions. If you don't have, I mean, you can combine the two. We'll actually learn in the next session how do we combine the two and give a speech on any subject we want. After learning that structure and the art of giving a speech, an extempore speech, you will be able to give speech on any subject on any occasion. Just you have to understand the structure. And it can be used also for one-to-one conversation when you are giving a presentation to a client, or you are going to meet your boss, or you are going for a GDPI or anything. You can use these structures. So now we are done with. Any questions you have, please ask. Any questions you have? Okay. I got an answer, no, sir. Okay, please practice this. Make a video of your talk and send it to us. Send it to Meghmala. We'll select which is the best 4 or 5 one, and then we will post it, and everybody can see those speeches. One, a talk for getting action, which is a story, conclusion, call for action. And second is when you're trying to convince somebody about something using questions for which the answer is yes in the beginning, and finally linking those set of questions with the final question where I'm needing yes from my audience. Okay then, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Love you. Yeah, thanks.